Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Jessica Pisano here at Mast Advanced Diagnostics, and I have Jamie Blazinski here with us again. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the questions we're getting from a lot of our patients. So Jamie, I have a lot of patients, of course, that have very limited diets. Mast cell oftentimes means,
Sure.
not always, that we don't tolerate every food. So some of my patients are pretty scared right now because resources are very limited in terms of being able to find, the exact food they might want to eat. How would you ask one of the patients to work through this fear?
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a fear. And in times of stress, sometimes people can become so talented at coming up with the worst case scenario. They could almost write a horror movie. They're so good at imagining that they're going to be lying in their bed, starving and alone. But what I really encourage them to do is when they're in that fight or flight fear response, to check in and see what's going on, because sometimes, or quite frequently actually, they will distort and exaggerate what could possibly happen. So take it out to the end and look at what's really going to happen. And sometimes you want to step out of it and almost observe yourself thinking it and be like, is this correct? Am I really going to starve? Because if I'm looking at this as an outsider and I'm objectively watching this fear, I realized that, well, I have neighbors all around me that have food and wouldn't allow me to starve. And I have family that actually could mail me food and I could order. And you start to realize that the reality of the fear is not as frightening as you have created it to be. And another good tip is go back to the last time you had this horrible fear that something really bad was going to happen. Usually you discover that it didn't happen, and then you realize that this is a pattern of worrying about things that never actually happens.
Absolutely. And I can tell you in my personal experience, certainly not necessarily COVID-19, because this is definitely new and different for all of us, but at my worst, I only had three foods that were safe. I was eating turkey, olive oil, and kale, and that was it. And so many times something that I needed wasn't available. And it was that fear factor. Would I go hungry? And the reality is my fear was worse than the actual reality, which was I was at my local Whole Foods, and I finally, screwed up the courage to ask somebody for help with something. And they informed me at that time, they're like, well, if we don't have something that you want or that you need regularly, we give a 20% discount if you buy a case. So my turkey cutlets, which sometimes were there and sometimes weren't, I started buying cases of. They would order them special. I would get my own case. I would stock my freezer, and I never ran out again. And so one of the things that I would say, we need to deal with that psychological fear, but sometimes we also just need to take a deep breath and problem solve, because there are lots of places that are still getting in shipments regularly. And if you talk to them, you can order online. Just be aware that instead of having it the same day or the day later, that it might take a week to get something in. So you just need to be a little bit proactive and plan. And then as Jamie was talking about, calm that inner dialogue that's going on, that's creating that fear loop, because there are things that can be done and there are resources and people who are willing to help. And in fact, I would say right now you're more likely to find somebody that's willing to help you than any other time, because everybody is scared, and that fear is something that resonates with all of us.
Yeah, and when you're stuck in that place of fear, your ability to problem solve is actually impaired. And when you calm it down and you realize that there are solutions, you can take the action, which is exactly what you just described.
Mhm. Well, perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll be back again real soon with another one of our patient questions. Have a great day and stay healthy and well.